Perfect.
That worked. It
That
did.
worked. Excellent. So brilliant. Then, but let's make a start. We've just talked about a few bits how this is going to run, and hope we can provide some value for all those fellow students out there who are desperate for working with clients.
Yeah, that's completely it. Yeah, I'm sure lots of people will know how, and be already fine with finding their clients. I'm thinking more of the people who are thinking, I can't do this, or feeling stuck.
I know, and I can very much relate to this. I remember the first time I started, like it was about, I came out of my training quite fresh, and I'm like, well, I'm a great coach now, so well, how am I going to do this now?
Yeah.
Because during my training, we worked predominantly with the people from the training, and then I had a few people who I knew who were up for coaching anyway. And then, I don't know, I had a couple of conversations, but I've never actively went out there during that training and found clients. So I know what the process is like, and perhaps we can both share a few experiences of how that could be.
Definitely. It was, I definitely recognize that feeling. It was the same for me. So I did a little exercise because I'm a change manager, people change manager by like a sort of training profession, and a project manager as well. So there's a temptation to kind of kick into the project manager side, which is make a list of things to do and go and do it, which is fine. But I like that. That's a sort of quite a transactional model, which is, you're going from, I have my training, so I'm going to do coaching, and then I'm going to be a coach. And I actually when I work with organizations, I flip it around to the transformational model, which is a transformational model of leadership as well. But so being a coach first, and then doing my coach-like actions will let me have coachees, training, development, all the rest of it. So I did start, first of all, by thinking, making myself stop and think, if I'm being a coach, what are the thoughts in my head about that? And then I broke them down into 3, which is my thoughts about me, about other people, and then what I thought other people thought about other people. And it was really interesting because there was piles of negative stuff. And I was like, no wonder I felt so stuck, because I just all this stuff in my head. I was thinking, I don't know how to coach. I definitely don't have the skills to do this. I thought about other people. They won't like me. And they'll know that I won't know what I'm doing. So for me, a lot of the stuff was very about this skill that I thought that I didn't have. Was so interesting, and that was straight there, like a massive block for me. And then you arrive on the UEL, and they're like, so go and find some people and go coaching. And it was just really interesting. In my head, I was completely blocked up with these thoughts.
Oh, that's really interesting. So just to get the thoughts and limiting beliefs and generally thoughts about coaching, about yourself, about other people, just get it out in the open, yeah?
And like the people about people thoughts, they were hilarious, because I hear a lot of other voices there, like my dad, or like, what are you going to do with them? And people only like successful coaches, like people don't like time wasters. There's a lot of other people kind of assumptions were there as well.
Oh, that is so excellent. Yeah, so you put your coaching skills to use already by that.
I didn't. Well, you see, it's really funny, because at that point I didn't know they were coaching skills. I've been using this for years, and it turns out it's all good stuff.
Yeah, that's excellent. Did you write that down, or how did you do that?
Yeah, I do it in a table, and then the other side of it on the table, I look at, like, what do I actually know, or the facts about these things, and I make myself step back a bit and kind of play devil's advocate, which I know now is a coaching technique, but I didn't know before was one.
Yeah, there's a lot of those.
yeah. So I just kind of looked at, so the things like, I don't know how to coach and I don't have the skills, was a really interesting one, because before I came on the course, I had researched other courses that I might do and that would turn me into a coach. And I realized that like they offer a kind of, weekend of training and then you're done. And so by the time we'd finished block 2, I would have had the same training as someone who'd done a coaching course, one of these other ones. So I found that really interesting. It was very factual for me. I'm quite a factual person, and that was a very factual. It was like, shut up. By the end of block 2, you are trained.
Yeah.
What doesn't matter how I feel and my emotions about that, but the fact will be, I'm trained. So that was really good for me, just to like shut up the voice in my head.
Okay, in a way, it's classic ABC, you know. It's like, well, what am I feeling? What's the belief behind it? And then disputing that belief and realizing, no, actually, I have a lot more training than a lot of the coaches out there.
And so the emotions then calmed down. And if I then started fussing about it again, I could calm myself down again. So I could repeat that. Like if you wake up in the night and you're like, just think, wait, I'm trained. Yannick says I'm trained. Christian says you can't do any harm by doing this. So like, come on, get real. So that was good. And then stuff about like, you know, the thoughts I had about others, you know, they won't like me or they'll know that I don't know. So that's then became really straightforward. Well, I'll just tell them I'm a trainee, you know. Oh, sorry, my computer's doing a thing. Hang on, I'm just going to close that. I'm going to tell them I'm a trainee, and then that won't be in the way. You know, it became very kind of straightforward. I had heard of other people doing a chemistry call, and I thought, well, we'll just sort out. If they don't like me and I don't like them, we'll do a chemistry call first, and then I don't have to worry about this whole liking people thing. Anyway, I just really went systematically down them, which is the project manager in me as well. It was just like, go through all these barriers and let's sort them out.
Helpful.
Yeah, it did. It really, I felt such a sense of freedom. And I did this in between block 1 and block 2. And also the thing which it led me on to do some actions as well before block 2. But I find that was really good timing, because then by the end of block 2, I also had a lot of the skills then trained into me. So some of those kind of facts became reality.
Cool.
So if that was the start, I was kind of looking at the being of a coach. And so then I was also looking then at the doing. Okay, if I can get all this out of the way and I can be a coach, then what are the coach-like things that I can do? So I just began to think with a lot, again, blank piece of paper, a lot more freedom. Well, who am I as a coach? Am I a trainee? Am I running a business? Because in my head, people had said to me, no, don't ever coach for free, even when you're training. And I was like, so am I going to start a business now, like before the end of block 2? You know, for me, that was absolute nonsense. I realized that was two different things. There was training how to be a coach, and then there was setting up a business. So for me, I junked the whole business one. I'm going to do that later. And I just got clear. I just need coaches, and I just need to practice. So
and I think that's really useful. Like at this point, it's not a business. It's not about making business. It's not about charging or not charging. All of that is very secondary at the moment. You know, it's just about getting the training in and getting practice. Yeah.
And it's difficult as a businesswoman, you know, and I think lots of people are mature when they come on this course. That's quite an unusual thought, to go back to that my time is not going to be paid for at this point.
Yeah.
So it was quite a good thing when I realized that gave me a lot of freedom as well, and also to just get on with it.
Yeah, that's an interesting one, because like some people would say, well, there's a lot of expectation in how good the coaching is going to be just by paying for it. So there's actually, people take it more seriously when they pay for it. That's why, like, it's much easier to get free clients if they don't pay anything. It's much easier to get them in, because the risk of joining the coaching relationship is not very high, because the only thing they can lose is like a bit of their time. But my experience, even a minimal amount, even £5 make a difference in my experience and the experience of previous students. Like, even if they just pay £5, they're not going to cancel on you last minute or just not turn up. Like, they take it a bit more seriously.
Yeah, definitely. And that's something. So I've done just over 30 hours now with people, only one of whom was a paying client, and that was through a different work contract that I already had. So, and it's really interesting. I've definitely found that there's something, I think maybe it's a British mentality. I don't know. We're used to the NHS. We have a lot of government services. We're not kind of payers. And when I've lived in other countries and other cultures where you more normally pay for these things, but anyway, in Britain we don't tend to pay for things, and we take them for granted slightly. And I definitely think even the £5 thing, even and calling it a discount, all that other kind of, you know, there's lots of ways around that. But for me, one of the so that was, I looked at who am I as a coach. And then the other thing I thought, I got really curious about, hey, how does everyone else do this? Like these are people who are charging. So I looked at your website, I looked at all sorts, I was just kind of going around the place reading websites, and picked up loads of things. I thought, well, I like that, I don't like that. So it was lovely freedom. It wasn't journal reading, it wasn't books on coaching, it was just kind of fun looking around and getting curious. And so from that, it began to take shape in my head. I'm going to do a chemistry session and 3 free sessions. I'm going to make it, that will make it a limited time offer. When I'm going to say up front, I'll block out 2 hours per session, but you can have as long as you like, up to 2 hours. You know, there was lots of language I saw that's already out there in the kind of coaching world about how people want, and I was thinking about myself, what would I like if someone said it'll be an hour? You know, and so loads of stuff like that. And I'm still experimenting with that now, but I've got myself like enough to get started.
Yeah. And I think just to throw in there, in terms of the paying, not paying, like you're already communicating value and professionalism with that. You're saying, yes, I am in training. However, you adopted what other professional coaches are doing. You say, this is not free coaching. This is an initial free 3 sessions free.
Yeah.
You know, and then I will definitely charge because coaching is a valuable thing. So I think the way you put it forward is like communicating value, but then giving like a special offer while you're still in training. So I think this is really clever in terms of keeping the value high, but still offering something for free.
Yeah, and I found, so then I was reading through it and I thought, oh, I don't want to feel trapped. I've bought a free product and I hate that when you do that on the internet. So I put a big, you know, really clear sentence in there. There is no expectation that you will continue afterwards.
Yeah.
Little things like that. So created this, tried it out for a few days. So as I went into block 2, I was just kind of forming in my mind of like my words and stuff. Oh, found Moodle really useful. There's like a couple of the example coaching contracts and things like that. Also just like a mega speed read through everything. My style. But, you know, just picking up bits and pieces like who are coaches, what do they do? Because I'm still not great at the like, you know, elevator chat about it. Can I answer someone in 30 seconds what is a coach? Better, but at that time I couldn't answer it, so I found
it's practice.
Writing it down was so helpful. Getting clear, and then I had basically the like products, the coach like things that I began to have then was a draft contract, and also from there then I could pull out of that the words that became a draft advert. So then the next thing I did is I thought, okay, where are these people? Because one of my original things, if you remember, was I can't do this. I don't know how to do this. One of my other original things was I don't know anybody who wants coaching. So I began to think, okay, so there's within my own network of people, some people were like, oh, you're going to do a course? Brilliant. Will you coach me? Even though there were throwaway comments, I've got people like that. I've also got networks like, I know a woman, I'm in a closed women's network, but I think that loads of these, and like then talking to other people on our course, there's everyone now with the world of Facebook and internet, whatever, we're all in networks. So there's Buy and Sell Bromsgrove, there's Women in Business Exeter, there's Aussies in London, you know, whatever whatever there are. So
yeah, and the great thing about these networks is people already know you to some extent, you know, depending on what kind of group or what kind of network it is. Thinking about the people that already know you, they know tons of people. So if it's not them that are interested in coaching, it might be somebody that they know and they already have an existing level of trust. That is super useful.
Yes, and I found that was really interesting. So when I made my little advert, and I was like quite careful that it wasn't too long, you know, it was all this kind of stuff in it as well, and posted it, the response was overwhelming. So I would say to someone trying this approach was like, do you believe in yourself? Like this will happen. And if it doesn't, then go back to the beginning and look at what is something off in how you're being about it, you know, some of your things. And I realized, like, you know, then I got, so 26 people responded.
Wow.
Then I needed a PA because I hadn't put in my advert. When
do you have the advert, or would you be willing to share the advert? Because I'm sure a lot of people would now be wondering, like, what the hell did you write? That must have been amazing.
Yeah, sure, I will. But one of the stupid things that, let's say stupid, that's not very coaching, is it? I made a mistake. I didn't put on there, if you're interested, please reply with your email address and your phone number. So then all these people got back to me on Facebook, one by one, all through the messenger thing. I was then going back to find them, back to say, yes, are you interested? Here's the draft coaching agreement. I had like a process set up because I'm a project manager, so I knew they'd get in contact. I'd send a draft agreement. If they were still interested, I'd arrange a chemistry call, and after that, then we'd book sessions. So I knew I would then have a process to follow, and I was exhausted running around after all these. So my definitely life lesson from that was think if 26 people respond, how am I going to manage? And what would be really useful? So those were things that I make Excel spreadsheets, and I've got like a page for each person, but then I've got a central one. So if someone, gets back to me, and then I can see if I contacted them, then I was like, how many times am I going to go back to someone? Because I was like in a supply and demand situation, I didn't have to be chasing after people. So, it was like, what are my rules about that? There was a lot of thinking. But it was kind of fun, because in the sort of general abundance of it all, it was really good fun.
Yeah. Okay.
What else?
So what did the ad say?
What did the ad say? Let me see if I can. I'll go to my folder. Facebook pitch November 17. That's what that's called. I'm just going to get that word of the way. Okay, no, I don't think there's anything on there. I can't. Sorry, it's because it's a closed group that I shared it with. So now this is a clever thing. Let's share screen. Has it appeared?
Yeah, I can see that. Okay, I see. After years informally working with people to bring clarity, focus, and results in lives. Okay, this is really cool. I mean, here people can pause and kind of read through that, just as an example of how it could be done. I've seen many ads of students, some very short, like, hey, I'm doing a training as a coach, and I need practice clients. If anybody wants some free coaching, get in touch. If you can see, I think 26 replies is quite a lot. So if you write a little bit of, give people a little bit of detail and a bit of certainty about like what this could be used for, that really, really helps.
Also, this network group that I'm in, so there are very high-powered women, very successful in their lives. Which is why I'm in it, you might wonder, but anyway. So I'm kind of talking into quite a big space, I think, and that was why I didn't want it. Another thing that I'm trained in as a project manager is if you're sending out a communication, you need to think about all the questions. If you're not answering questions already in your communication, you're making a lot of work for the person on the other side who's going to have to go, well, now I need to know this and I need to know that, and then making them work to get back to you to ask you the question, and making yourself work, because then you're going to answer to 26 people, what's all this about?
Yes, and that causes a lot of work replying.
Yeah. So it is a bit long, and it's definitely something I would work on, and sort of critique of myself is that I know that wouldn't work in every scenario, because some people are just not going to read to the bottom of it, or it's just going to be too much. But I definitely find that there's something about giving an essence of yourself, and then as we've gone on in the coach training, I can see that really fits with some of the other stuff that we've bought, because they're signing up for me in some way because of what I've written, and it feels like quite a responsibility for someone at the start of the exercise was full of all these negative thoughts.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's quite a step to go out there and first of all think, well, who am I and what do I have to offer? What do I believe in? Why am I doing this? And then there's lots of different ways of how you can put something out there. And this is hopefully something I can talk to Gunnar about, because this is where we are at the heart of marketing and advertising in a way. Because do you start with your values and your why? Do you start with why coaching is amazing, or do you start with what could they get out of it? Do you start with the process of what coaching is? Do you start with what are people's desires and how can I offer a solution? And it really depends on how well do you know those people that are reading this. You know, if you put something out to your general Facebook network, everybody, that might be, I don't know, 20 people or 1,000, you don't really know all of them. If you write something to the, I don't know, professional working women in Barnsley, you know, who like work in advertising and sales, then you know what they are like, you know what their kind of challenges are, and then you can tap like position coaching as something that is a solution for what they're struggling with.
Yeah, and that's definitely where in my kind of doing section, where I was doing the thing like coach like things, I did think, where are my coachees? I mean, I don't have all that marketing knowledge, but it changed how I wrote this advert, realizing that it was going to go to these people.
Yeah.
And I'm definitely, it's something I'm keen to learn a lot more from, because yes, I've had success from this one thing, but for example, this is a sisterhood of, if you like, of women. So that's not going to be if I'm doing an advert for when I launch as a coach for money, this probably going to be, or is it? You know, that's a whole new lesson for me. Shall I stop sharing it?
Yeah, that's fine.
Cool. What else do you think? Because those are the kind of thoughts that I'd had about things that I did and the thinking that I did and the results that I've had. Yeah, people might want to know. So it settled down to about 10 people in the end, all those 26. It was quite difficult. I went through a big thing of, I need to feel responsible for all these people who want coaching, and I need to look after them, and I can't coach all of them. So I tried to find a way to set them up so that they could go and meet other coachees on our course. And not all of them went across. So there's quite a lot of lessons for me in that. I think this is a very personal advert, and I think that people kind of felt like, oh, she doesn't want me. There was a sort of rejection thing in there. It was really interesting. So a lot of people, when I said, oh, I'll next be available, I'm full now, I'm next available in March, they said, oh, that's fine, I'll wait. Which was kind of interesting, you know.
It's interesting how you phrased it, because like the first thought I had was coaching is something personal, and if you put a personal ad out there to your personal networks, so if somebody wants to coach with you, it just goes to show how important the relationship is. You know, and they're not buying. Usually, clients are not buying coaching; they're buying a relationship with a coach. And if that coach that they felt they could trust is not available, and you don't build that trust to somebody else. For example, if I refer somebody and I would say, hey, here's 3 other coaches, here are their numbers and here are their websites. It's very, very different to when I say, hey, I know somebody else. I know like 2 other guys, and I've known them for some time. They have the same level of training as I do, or they work in the same approach, and I would recommend them to you. Then you're passing on your relationship to them in a way.
Yeah, I did try that, but it's very interesting. I'm still in the process of unpicking that, how to hand across. So some went and some didn't, and some said they would stay. Yeah, but that relationship that you're building, even like, which I've now started to think about as like a pre-coaching relationship. It may be in some of the literature, I can't remember. Anyway, but yeah, like to be responsible for the fact that even when I'm doing my thinking about who my coachees are going to be, that's the start of my coaching relationship with these people.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other way around as well, like if you do have a website, or if you do have somebody talking about you or recommending you, people have a relationship with you as a coach before you even know that they exist.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing the other way around, just as you say, you know, when you think about who you want to work with, and I think this is important, in the beginning, too many coaches, I think, they don't think who to work with, because it's like any client will do. And in a way that's true, because any client will give you valuable learning experience. But the earlier you start thinking about, well, who would I like to work with? Who would be a client that I would enjoy? You know, do they need to be open or funny or like successful, or do they need to be introverts or extroverts? Like, would I like a very reflective person, or somebody who just like keeps speaking any thought that pops into their mind? What kind of industry would they be in? What kind of age? So these are things, the earlier you think about them, the easier it is to get those clients. Because then you can start thinking about, well, what kind of websites do they visit, or whose friend are they, or what kind of cafe do they go to? I could put a flyer up. Or what kind of newspapers do they read? I could put an ad up. Or what kind of Facebook groups are they in? Or what pages do they like? So I can target some Facebook advertising.
Yeah.
You know, for like, I don't know, for £5 of Facebook advertising, you can get quite a lot of exposure. You know, what kind of group do you have that you could post this kind of ad into? What are the challenges that those people in those groups have, or what goals, what aspirations do they have? And then you can phrase your ad in different ways to directly talk to somebody. The more directly you talk to somebody, the more they are likely to respond.
Yeah, it's amazing. Like, even from this, like, just, and you mentioned it you mentioned it on Block 2 or whatever, and I was thinking, oh, right, okay. But I get it so much more now, just from this one experience of playing with it. It's phenomenal. It's sort of and it's partly that law of attraction stuff, I think, as well. Like, just by me being really clear, then it allows for them, you know, that space in my head for those people. It's amazing. It really works. Like, you know, when you read all this stuff and you do something, you're like, oh, it worked.
Yeah, mindset does a lot to it, and I think a lot of that is just the way you present yourself. If you're open to receiving clients, then you put yourself into that mindset of like, well, I have something to offer, and they're gonna get value from me. And I think the first thing you said is really important, that you actually get out into the open, write it down or talk about it, what your limiting beliefs are. Because even in an ad, people will pick up on if you believe or don't believe in what you have to offer. You know, and the things that you really don't know about, yes, you are not like a coach with years of experience, but as you say, that the sooner you just put it out into the open and you're transparent in what you can offer, then you don't have to worry about that anymore. But the more people get the impression that you can really deliver value, and you might or might not mention how experienced you are, but if they believe they're going to get value, they are going to get value.
It's yes. I think that's, and then to the sort of further along that same line of thought, I think is then the amount that you charge and the amount of value that is perceived around it. But because I'm not that strong around the money conversation yet, I'm just really even focusing on this. Who do I think I am and believe I am as a coach has been extraordinary in making an impact on these conversations. And one person has reached the end of her 4 sessions, and she's now said, yes, this is worth money, and yes, I'll pay. So, you know, that I'm starting to build my own muscle around that, whilst not really focusing on it. So that gives me quite a lot of you know, hope for come the point when this course has cost me a lot of money. At some point it ought to we're going to have to earn some money back again. You know, I'm in a kind of real world conversation about this as well. And already, even after 2-3 months, I've got the feeling that, yeah, I can do this. I can learn it. I don't maybe know it now, but I can do this.
Yeah, and I hear that again and again from tons of students who say, like, I really wasn't sure and I was super nervous going into the first session, and then I realized I just need to be there and to listen and to relate and to be curious, and they get a ton out of it. Not everybody, you know, because sometimes people are just not ready for coaching, or they misunderstand fundamentally what it is. You know, maybe there wasn't a super clear contracting conversation and expectations were somewhere else. Some people just, they're not ready for coaching because they need something else at this moment. But the vast majority of people, you sit down, you're curious, you build a relationship. You're not going to get every question right, but like you're going to be there, and people are going to get value out of it. Like, if you remember the lamppost metaphor, you know, if you just listen and you listen well, then people will get value.
And yes, if you run somebody through a process and it doesn't really deliver value, chances are it's not going to do anything bad either. Worst case scenario, it tends to be that, somebody wasted their time for an hour and they're not going to come back.
Yeah.
In very rare occasions that we have to have a little bit of an eye out there in terms of, here's somebody who seems to be really depressed, and I'm not sure if I ask some questions, I might open Pandora's box. So I think this is something we still need to have an eye out on. But the vast majority of clients, if we meet them and they seem sane, and we contract it in a way that, as soon as we feel we're out of our depth, then we are allowed to end it, for whatever reason, and you have an understanding with the client that that's okay. That's just basic contracting. So I think as soon as we get the contracting right, we don't have to worry about a thing anymore.
It's one of the things I was really careful to do was to contract about being a student. So in the chemistry call, I actually use like a mini grow model, and I block out an hour for that call. So it's not. I see that some other coaches do it in a quicker way maybe, but I do I wouldn't necessarily go into coaching in that call, but I do a lot of, the person talks about what they want to get out of it. And then I talk about, there are 4 different sort of thought processes, behavioral, humanistic, whatever. I talk a little bit about those with a bit of humor, like, hey, existential, don't really know what that is yet, whatever. And say, if we go forward and you do coaching with me, I'm learning this. So I'll be able to try out some of this stuff on you, and you'll be able to ask me loads of questions about it. And I'll be kind of also asking you to give me feedback, because I want to know, did it work or did it not work? And people begin to get, I've just seen all of them, they just were like, oh, brill. Yeah, this is really interesting. And feedback straight away after, yeah, I didn't like it. I didn't like that. And they don't know that it's CBT, or they didn't know it was humanistic. I didn't know all those things. I'm doing that for my log and making my notes and stuff, but people were just great and say, what would have made a difference? All those conversations were so much easier because the initial contracting for me was around, I'm a trainee, but on this really fun journey, not like, oh God, I've got an assignment to write, but it was more like, this is really interesting. And, I did this at the weekend. And so we try this new thing. And I was sort of trying out all these, values in action or whatever it was we were doing. So I think allowing myself to then have fun in the journey has helped the coachees also. They seem to have had fun as well. And so, yeah, it seems to all, it's funny this, isn't it? Because it's partly a process and it's partly approach, isn't it? It seems to work.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the McKenna article, the 15% is like clients' expectations. And a lot of it is the relationship, and only 15% is the actual approach that we're using. And then there's outside influences that are beyond our control anyway.
Yeah.
So if we get the relationship right, and that depending, like if we present ourselves super professional coaches already, they might get more from the expectation, but the relationship might suffer once they realize we actually don't have that much experience. So I think setting the relationship up transparently and authentically is really, really important. And I really like the way that you seem to be doing it, with a bit of humor, transparent, it's like we're going to be learning together, but also you're going to get value from it.
I'm just reading through my notes on another screen and they can see it's reflected in my classes. I'm checking what I wrote at the weekend. I'm only learning this now, and, sort of reading stuff out. We're laughing at it and going, psychologists have studied this and they come up with this, and then we laugh going, I don't have to be a psychologist to know that, would you? It was just, yeah, definitely that's personal style for me. But yeah, I think that the people that I've been working with have really engaged with the whole, she's a student and this is really interesting.
Cool. Okay, that's really, really helpful.
Yeah, well, I hope so. I hope if it helps one person get unstuck and get themselves onto, coachees, then go for it.
Yeah. Have you experimented with different ads, or did you write that once and then posted it into a bunch of groups, or were there different versions?
No, that's the one ad, and it's that into the one group. There's 2,500 women in that group. So, that helped. But so no, I haven't needed to yet, because I've actually been managing it the other way around, where I'm like, I can't take on any more at the minute. But that's what I mean. I'm really interested in, and do think about, like, I'm reflecting on what was it about that worked, what didn't work. And yeah, come the day when, which I've now engaged a private coach supervisor.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I've arranged with her to do is like an add-on package. So not just coaching supervision, but also startup of business. And one of the things that we're looking at is, we talked about, those metaphors, stepping into my power as a coach.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really, who am I and what's this product going to be? So it's a totally different kind of almost business conversation, but it relates very much to the product, which relates very much to me. So I'm really excited about that next step now.
Cool. That's excellent. That's super helpful. Okay. Is there anything else you think might help people out there?
No, go for it. Get coaching. If you're stuck, get coaching.
Get coaching, because you realize very quickly it's fun. It's not that bad. You just need to be you and get going.
Yeah, definitely. And you can do this.
Yes, you can.
Yeah, you really can.
Cool. Well, thank you so much, Kate.
Pleasure, Yannick. All right then. I'll see you in a week or so.
I'm gonna stop the recording here and say thank you.
Okay.
It was really helpful.